Hi, my name is Mike Bachman, and I'm a United Methodist pastor, and I'm excited that we're able to share in a little question and answer time with Imam Omar Suleiman. He's here to answer questions from some folks who have been part of our audience as we've been having an extended conversation together. So I'll introduce them each, and I'm looking forward to hearing their questions and the response that Imam Omar has. And so now we have Deborah, who has been a part of our audience today, and she has a question for Imam Omar.
Hi, I was just wondering, how would you explain to Americans especially whose perception is that all Muslims hate us? My perception is that there is some anti-American general feelings in Muslim countries. Mm-hmm. And but some of the way when I talk to people is I try to say, but why do you think that might be? We have a lot of, as Americans, generally in America, just growing up, nobody ever told me Muslims are bad. We didn't have 9/11 when I was growing up. We didn't have any of that, but there was still that general thing in the back of your mind to be a little distrusting of Muslim, we didn't understand it. Right. It was not good for women. I think I saw the Sally Fields movie, Yeah. And so that was my only concept before it was even ever verbalized to me. And so I try to tell my friends or somebody, I'm like, we have one thing that's a real significant thing to us, which is 9/11. But imagine what the United States does in other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And how that might affect, what are some of the things, I don't think I've even asked a question. Do you get a question from what I'm saying?
Yeah,
okay. So there, if you can.
But I don't want to cut you off. So
no, that's good. If you can help me with that.
Okay. So what I would say is that is there anti-American sentiment throughout the Muslim world? I'd say that it's in various parts of the world, and that anger is primarily directed towards the American government due to foreign policy. So depending on how affected that country is by America's foreign policy, and then how the people view America's role in whatever conflict they're in. So the people of Syria, for example, many of them feel betrayed, right? Because Bashaar El Asad was left to butcher his people without any intervention. But suddenly when ISIS rose, there was intervention. So it was why did we have to get to this in order for that intervention to take place? There's also a sense of, those that live under dictators. So for example, as our government supported Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, who repressed his people for all those years. There was an animosity amongst the Egyptian people. Why is the American government supporting our dictator? Israel-Palestine is the biggest issue in the Middle East. It's the sore spot, right? Across the world, the views of Israel-Palestine are far different from here in the United States. We find that many times the United States vetoes resolutions and things of that sort in the United Nations to sanction Israel and things of that sort. So the Palestinian cause is because there are Palestinian refugees all throughout the Arab world, in particular the Muslim world. So the injustice that's perceived of the American government supporting the Israeli government and so on and so forth, weapons and so on and so forth, the Iraq war. There are a lot of things to make the American government very unpopular in different parts of the Muslim world. Drone strikes, right? So if my cousin was killed in a drone strike, right, in Yemen, some guy pushed a button in Nevada and a drone fell and it killed my cousin in Yemen, I'm going to be pretty upset about that. I'm going to be pretty angry about that. So there are people that are angry and things of that sort. But all of these are limited to political conflicts. No one hates America because they're Muslim. And also I would say that it's not always directed towards the American people. In most cases, it's not directed towards the American people. Most Americans that have gone to the Muslim world have had very positive experiences. I know very few Americans that have gone to the Muslim world that have come back and be like, those guys hate our guts. Most of them felt that the people were very hospitable towards them and very loving and very accepting. So it's one thing to argue on a government policy perspective. And that's what I was saying. We can't become, a country that subdues political dissent and anger towards some of the government's policies. If you're anti-war, you're anti-war. You're not anti-American. You don't hate your government. You don't hate your country. You're anti-war. And so that should be an acceptable position in our discourse. But Muslims in general, how do we convince the American public that Muslims don't hate Americans? Number one, that they're not mutually exclusive, that you have 7 to 10 million Muslim Americans, people that are Muslim and American, that function well in this society, that do well in this society, and that have great relationships with their neighbors and with their co-workers and so on and so forth. You know, how many people have a Muslim doctor that they go see, or, you know, so clearly it's not because they're Muslim, right? And I would say that we have to look at this in a very nuanced way. So do people hate Canadians because of the simplistic narrative that's out there is that people hate America because of its freedom? Well, there are countries in Europe that are non-interventionists, that don't get involved in anything in the world, that are a lot more free than we are, right? But no one hates them, and no one attacks them, and those types of things don't take place. That doesn't justify that attack, but it should cause us to reevaluate our foreign policy and to think about our involvement in different parts of the world. And, you know, whether the isolationist interventionist debate is a pretty old debate in this country, right? And whether or not we should be involved in global politics and things of that sort. But that's a fair discussion to have. And Muslims don't hate the American people, though many Muslims around the world are very dismayed by American foreign policy, and that's a debate to be had. You know, of whether or not that's something that we need to reevaluate and analyze, and that's going to be a very hard debate to have, and it should be had regardless of whether or not people will hate us. It should be had whether or not it should be had because we should be thinking about whether or not what we're doing is correct and whether it's righteous or not. So
yeah. Well, I like the distinction you drew between how some of the Muslim world might feel towards America versus the American government. I think that was good. I think Americans, at least some people that I talk to, don't see a difference.
No, they don't.
So,
and you know, I'll share this with you guys. I was in the UAE when 9/11 happened. Okay. I didn't see any celebrations. I remember.
You should have been in New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey, where the thousands of people were out there
flooding the streets.
Oh my God, flooding the streets, chanting Allahu Akbar, right? You know, well, yeah, those guys. New Jerseyans. Yeah, you're from New Jersey, right? It's the Jersey boys. I'll tell you one thing that happened that was really interesting on 9/11. Okay, you had these images of people in Palestine that were celebrating in the street, right? And that 9/11 took place. And I was in the Muslim world, and there were no celebrations. In fact, there were candlelight vigils in many parts of the Muslim world. People were genuinely disgusted by the attacks, and they also feared the backlash, because most people have relatives here and things that were like, oh God, now they're going to be pursued, now they're going to. So people were not happy about 9/11 by and large throughout the Muslim world. But when you get some footage of some people celebrating, and it gets pumped out in American media as if that's the norm, then
right
that's
after it happened.
Right after it happened. Yeah. And let me tell you what was really interesting. I'm sitting there in the UAE, it's midnight, because they're 9 hours ahead, and I'm seeing the celebrations in Palestine, and it's daytime in Palestine. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, how is that even possible? And it turned out that media outlets were using footage from 1993, when the Israelis pulled out of the West Bank in Gaza, and they were showing that as 9/11 protests. And some people deny it and they say it's a hoax and it's not true, but there is no way that they were celebrating in daytime over there and that happened right away and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on there that wasn't true. And certainly, even if there were celebrations that took place in certain parts of the Muslim world, this was not the norm throughout the Muslim world. Yeah. If you ask anyone that lived in the Muslim world, that's not what it was. Just happening in New Jersey, unfortunately, and there was nothing we could do about that, right?
Jersey, man.
Jersey, right?